What happens when Ice Cube walks onto a live daytime talk show expecting another predictable celebrity interview, only for the entire panel to challenge him at once about politics, media narratives, and celebrity responsibility? What starts as a casual conversation quickly turns tense after one question sparks a chain reaction of interruptions, audience reactions, and uncomfortable silence that nobody in the studio seems prepared for. Make sure to subscribe to Talk Show Fallout and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The cameras roll back from commercial break as the audience claps loudly. The hosts are smiling, but there's already a strange energy at the table because the conversation before the break had started drifting into politics. Ice Cube sits calmly in his chair, hands folded, watching the panel carefully while one of the hosts leans forward with a grin. "So we're back with Ice Cube, everybody." The crowd cheers again. One host laughs. "You know, every time you come on television now, people don't just want to talk about music anymore." Ice Cube nods slowly. "That's true. They want to talk about what you say online." Another host cuts in immediately. "And who you support." Audience murmurs. Ice Cube gives a small smile. "See, we already hear." The audience laughs lightly. The moderator tries to keep things light. "No, but seriously, you've always been outspoken. Even back with NWA, you pushed buttons. But lately, some people feel like you've become more political than musical." Ice Cube leans back. "I think people confuse speaking honestly with being political." One host raises an eyebrow. "But when you criticize media, politicians, corporations, people are going to take that politically." "Maybe," Ice Cube replies. "But I think regular people are just tired of fake conversations." A few audience members clap. One host quickly jumps in before the applause grows. "But don't you think celebrities sometimes add to division when they speak on issues they may not fully understand?" Ice Cube turns toward her calmly. "You mean celebrities like everybody on television?" The audience reacts instantly. Loud cheers mixed with shocked laughter. The host smiles awkwardly. "Well, we're journalists here." Ice Cube pauses for a second. "Some of y'all are." Audience. "Oich. Even the moderator looks surprised. One host laughs nervously. "Okay, we starting early today." Ice Cube shrugs. "I'm just saying. Sometimes TV acts like entertainers should stay quiet while everybody else gets paid to talk." The moderator steps in carefully. "But there's concern that public figures influence millions of people." "And TV doesn't?" Ice Cube fires back. The audience applauds louder this time. One host shakes her head. "No, but there's a difference. People see celebrities as role models." Ice Cube nods slowly. "That's part of the problem right there. I never asked to raise grown adults. I make music. I make movies. I speak my mind. People choose what they want to follow." The audience claps again. Another host leans forward. "But words matter." "They do," Ice Cube says immediately. "That's why I'm careful with mine." The panel goes quiet for a second. The moderator smiles tightly. "Okay, but let's talk about this criticism you've had with mainstream media. You've said before that media outlets twist narratives. I said some outlets do. So are we one of them?" The audience reacts immediately. Ice Cube smiles. "Depends on the day." Laughter erupts across the studio. One host interrupts quickly. "See, that's the problem. You can't criticize media every time someone asks tough questions." Ice Cube stays calm. "I don't mind tough questions. I mind dishonest ones." "And what's dishonest?" "When people already decide the answer before asking." Audience applause. The moderator looks toward the crowd. All right, but one host keeps going. "No, because I think this is important. There's this growing trend where celebrities position themselves as victims anytime they get challenged." Ice Cube looks directly at her. "You think I look like a victim?" The audience gasps softly. The host hesitates. "That's not what I said. But that's what you implied." "Well, I'm saying public accountability matters." Ice Cube nods. "It does. Accountability should apply to everybody, though. Politicians, corporations, media companies, not just entertainers." A loud round of applause spreads through the audience. One host rolls her eyes slightly. "But it's easier to say media bad than answer criticism." Ice Cube turns toward her. "Criticism about what exactly?" "Well, some people think you fuel distrust." Ice Cube laughs quietly. "People already distrust institutions. I didn't create that." Audience applause grows again. The moderator tries to steer the conversation. "Let's shift slightly because I know people online have been debating your comments about Hollywood too." "Oh Lord," one host mutters jokingly. Ice Cube smiles. See, y'all nervous already. Audience laughs. The moderator continues. You said recently that Hollywood rewards people who play along. What did you mean by that? Ice Cube pauses before answering. I mean, sometimes this industry likes people who stay safe. Stay quiet. Repeat approved opinions. One host interrupts immediately. That sounds conspiratorial. No, Ice Cube says calmly. That sounds human. The audience claps hard. He continues. Every industry has gatekeepers. Music got M. Politics got M. Television definitely got M. Another host jumps in. But isn't that just professionalism? Ice Cube shakes his head. Professionalism ain't the same as obedience. The audience erupts louder than before. The moderator raises her hands, laughing nervously. Okay, one host. Looks frustrated now. See, the audience cheers, but this kind of rhetoric contributes to anti-media attitudes. Ice Cube looks around the studio. You keep saying rhetoric. I'm talking about real experiences. Your experiences aren't everyone's reality. And your panel ain't everybody's reality either. The audience explodes with applause and cheering. For the first time, the hosts begin talking over each other. That's unfair. No, hold on. We invite different opinions here. Ice Cube stays silent while the panel argues among themselves for a few seconds. The moderator finally regains control. Ladies. Audience laughter breaks some of the tension. The moderator turns back to Ice Cube. Do you think there's room anymore for honest conversation in media? Ice Cube answers immediately. Only if people stop treating disagreement like danger. A few audience members stand clapping. One host folds her arms. But some opinions are harmful. Ice Cube nods carefully. Sure, but labeling everything harmful is how conversations die. The audience gets louder again. Another host finally jumps in with a softer tone. Can I ask something honestly? Go ahead. Do you enjoy these confrontations? Ice Cube chuckles. Not really, but I'm not scared of them either. The audience applauds. The host continues. Because sometimes it feels like controversy follows you intentionally. Ice Cube smiles slightly. Or maybe honesty just makes people uncomfortable. Audience reaction grows again. One host quickly says, everybody says they're just being honest now. That phrase gets abused. Ice Cube nods. True, but avoiding honesty gets abused too. The moderator looks toward the camera. This is becoming a very lively discussion. The audience laughs. One host suddenly changes direction. Let me ask directly then. Do you believe mainstream television manipulates public opinion? The crowd instantly quiets. Ice Cube pauses for several seconds before answering. I think every powerful institution influences opinion, including television, including social media, including celebrities. The real question is whether people are allowed to question it without getting attacked. Silence spreads across the studio for a second before applause slowly builds. One host shakes her head. But questioning is one thing. Distrust is another. Ice Cube leans forward for the first time. Distrust happens when people feel lied to repeatedly. The audience erupts again. The moderator looks visibly tense now because the crowd is clearly siding with Ice Cube. One host tries to regain control. But saying things like that on national TV can deepen cynicism. Ice Cube responds instantly. Maybe people are cynical because life's been hard, not because rappers talk. Huge applause. Even some audience members laugh loudly at that line. The moderator smiles awkwardly. We're going to take a quick break. But before she can finish, one host cuts back in. No, because I actually want to push this further. The audience reacts immediately. Ice Cube looks over calmly. I figured you would. The host leans forward seriously now. Do you think people like us are the enemy? The entire studio goes quiet. Ice Cube stares at the table for a second before answering carefully. I think sometimes television forgets who it's supposed to serve. Silence. Then loud applause crashes through the audience while several hosts exchange uncomfortable looks. The moderator forces a smile toward the camera. We'll be right back after this. The audience is still clapping as the cameras return from commercial break, but the energy in the studio feels completely different now. Some people are leaning forward in their seats, waiting for the next exchange before anyone at the table even speaks. The hosts are smiling, but it looks tighter this time, less relaxed. Ice Cube sits calmly with his hands folded again while the moderator exhales and laughs lightly. Well, things got very serious during that break. The audience laughs nervously. One host immediately jumps in. Because these conversations matter. Another host nods. Exactly. Ice Cube gives a small shrug. I agree. The moderator looks relieved for a second. Okay, good. We found common ground. Audience laughter. But the tension comes right back when one host leans forward again. I want to go back to something you said before the break, she says. You mentioned television forgetting who it serves. Explain that. Ice Cube nods slowly. Simple. I think everyday people feel ignored a lot of the time. They watch discussions on TV where experts talk down to them instead of listening to them. A few audience members clap immediately. The host shakes her head. But that's a broad accusation. It's a broad problem. Audience applause grows louder. Another host interrupts. But don't you think distrust has become profitable too? Online personalities build entire careers telling people not to trust anything. Ice Cube points lightly toward her. Now that's true. The audience reacts with surprised laughter. He continues. Fear sells. Anger sells. Outrage definitely sells. Everybody's making money off division now. The moderator nods carefully. Including entertainment. Including entertainment, Ice Cube agrees. One host crosses her arms. So then aren't you part of the same machine? Ice Cube smiles slightly. Difference is I admit the machine exists. The crowd erupts again. One host throws her hands up jokingly. See, every answer sounds like a movie quote. Audience laughter. Ice Cube laughs too. Maybe because I've had 30 years answering loaded questions. The moderator tries to soften the atmosphere. Fair enough. But another host jumps back in quickly. You keep talking about everyday people. But critics say celebrities often pretend to represent regular people while living completely different lifestyles. Ice Cube nods immediately. That criticism can be fair sometimes. The audience quiets because they weren't expecting agreement. He continues. Some celebrities lose touch. Absolutely. But being successful doesn't erase where you came from or what you see. One host says, but you're wealthy now. Powerful. Famous. And people might say you're criticizing systems that benefited you. Ice Cube pauses. That system benefited a small version of me, he says calmly. Not necessarily the communities I came from. Audience applause spreads slowly through the studio. One host responds quickly. But isn't personal success proof the system can work? Ice Cube turns toward her. For everybody, the audience reacts immediately. The host hesitates. No system works perfectly for everybody. Exactly, Ice Cube says. So why do people get uncomfortable when someone points that out? The crowd applauds again. The moderator steps in before the applause fully dies down. Okay, but some viewers may hear this conversation and think it's becoming anti-American. That line changes the atmosphere instantly. Audience murmurs ripple across the room. Ice Cube looks surprised for the first time. Anti-American. The moderator clarifies carefully. No, I'm saying some viewers might interpret criticism of institutions that way. Ice Cube leans back slowly. I think questioning powerful systems is one of the most American things possible. Huge applause breaks out. One audience member yells, "That's right." The hosts glance toward the crowd. One host shakes her head. But there's a difference between questioning and encouraging distrust. Ice Cube responds calmly. You keep repeating that phrase like disagreement automatically creates chaos. Well, sometimes it does. No, Ice Cube says. Silencing disagreement creates explosions later. The audience gets louder again. Another host tries a different approach. Do you think social media made all this worse? Ice Cube nods instantly. Absolutely. The audience seems surprised again. He continues. Social media rewards extreme reactions. Calm conversations don't trend. One host says sarcastically. And yet here we are trending already. Audience laughter. Ice Cube laughs too. Probably. The moderator smiles. She's not wrong. Then another host jumps in with a more pointed tone. But you benefit from controversy too. Let's be honest. Ice Cube looks directly at her. You think I came here trying to fight with y'all? Well, no, he says firmly. I came here expecting a conversation. The audience applauds loudly. The host pushes back immediately. Conversations involve accountability too. Ice Cube nods. I'm accountable for what I say. Are networks accountable when they spread panic for ratings? The audience erupts. Several hosts start talking at once again. That is not fair. Oh, come on. News matters. The moderator raises her voice. One at a time. Audience laughter fills the room again. Ice Cube stays quiet while the panel settles down. The moderator turns back toward him carefully. Do you believe media intentionally scares people? Ice Cube answers slowly this time. I think fear keeps people watching. Silence. One host quickly says, "That's a dangerous statement." Ice Cube shakes his head. "No, it's business." Audience applause builds again. Another host interrupts. "But fear also comes from reality. Wars, crime, economic problems. I know," Ice Cube says. "But there's a difference between informing people and emotionally exhausting them every day." That line gets one of the biggest reactions so far. Even some audience members who had been quiet earlier start clapping hard. The moderator notices it too. "You're clearly connecting with this audience." One host mutters under her breath, "Unfortunately." Audience gasps loudly. The moderator immediately looks over. "Whoa!" Ice Cube raises his eyebrows but stays calm. The host sighs. "No, what I mean is sometimes audiences cheer statements without fully thinking through consequences." Ice Cube responds instantly. "That sounded very respectful." The audience explodes with laughter and applause. The host tries to recover. "You know what I meant." "No," Ice Cube says. "I know exactly what you meant." The tension spikes again. The moderator quickly cuts in. "All right, let's lower the temperature a little." One host laughs awkwardly. "Too late for that." Audience laughter breaks some tension again. The moderator looks at Ice Cube. "Have you always been this confrontational in interviews?" Ice Cube smiles slightly. "I don't think I'm confrontational. I think I answer directly." One host says, "Directly and aggressively." Ice Cube turns toward her. "Aggressive because I disagree?" The audience reacts instantly. The host pauses. "No, aggressive in tone." Ice Cube stays calm. "Interesting." The moderator senses the shift immediately. "Okay." Ice Cube continues speaking carefully now. "You know, it's funny. Sometimes when certain people speak passionately, they're called strong. Other people speak passionately, suddenly they're angry." The audience roars with applause. Several audience members stand up clapping. One host shakes her head. "I knew that was coming." Ice Cube shrugs. "Because it's true." Another host finally jumps in with a calmer tone. "Can I say something? I actually agree with part of what you're saying." Audience murmurs. The moderator looks relieved again. "Good." The host continues. "Media absolutely has problems. Social media absolutely fuels division. But where I disagree is when public figures imply institutions can't be trusted at all." Ice Cube nods respectfully. "Fair point." The audience quiets down to listen. "I'm not saying don't trust anything," he continues. "I'm saying people should think critically about everything." "That sounds reasonable," the moderator says. But one host interrupts quickly. "The problem is everyone thinks they're an expert now." Ice Cube smiles. "And television experts never get anything wrong?" Audience applause explodes again. The host throws her hands up. "Nobody said that. But you're acting like questioning authority is dangerous." "No, misinformation is dangerous." Ice Cube nods slowly. "True. But deciding who gets labeled misinformation can become dangerous too." The audience reacts loudly again. The moderator visibly realizes the discussion is slipping further out of control. "Okay, I think we're getting into very deep water here." Audience laughter. One host says sarcastically, "That ship sailed 10 minutes ago." More laughter. The moderator turns toward Ice Cube again. "Do you think this country is more divided now than before?" Ice Cube thinks for a moment. "No," he says finally. "I think division is more visible now." The audience quiets. He continues. "People used to hide what they thought. Now everybody broadcasts everything instantly." Another host nods slightly. "That's actually true." Ice Cube continues. "And because everything's public now, people stop talking to each other like human beings." The audience applauds again, softer this time. One host asks, "Do you think shows like this help or hurt?" The moderator laughs nervously. "Careful asking that question." Ice Cube smiles. "I think shows like this can help, if people actually listen instead of waiting to win." That line causes the audience to clap again, but this time even one or two hosts nod quietly. Then suddenly one host leans forward again with a serious expression. "But let me ask you this honestly. If someone strongly disagrees with you politically, socially, culturally, do you think they're automatically part of the problem?" Ice Cube answers immediately. "No," the audience quiets again. "I think people become the problem when they stop allowing disagreement at all." Silence spreads across the studio for a moment. Then applause slowly builds again. One host looks unconvinced. "But some ideas genuinely harm people." Ice Cube nods carefully. Then challenge those ideas openly. Don't shut conversations down before they happen. The audience erupts once more. The moderator looks toward the camera and laughs awkwardly. I have a feeling our producers are panicking right now. Huge laughter fills the studio. But before the moment can settle, one host suddenly says something that changes the mood completely. You know what I think this really is? Ice Cube turns toward her calmly. What? She leans forward. I think you resent mainstream media because it no longer controls the narrative around celebrities like it used to. The audience gasps immediately. Ice Cube stares at her silently for a few seconds while the studio becomes uncomfortably quiet. The silence hangs over the studio for several seconds after the host's comment. Even the audience seems unsure whether to react yet. Ice Cube sits completely still, staring at the panel while a few hosts shift awkwardly in their seats. The moderator finally exhales softly. All right, but Ice Cube speaks before she can redirect. You really think that's what this is about? The host shrugs carefully. I think a lot of celebrities miss the days when media couldn't push back. Audience murmurs spread across the room. Ice Cube nods slowly. Interesting. One host jumps in quickly. I actually think that's a fair point. Another host nods too. Me too. The moderator looks nervous because she can feel the temperature rising again. Ice Cube leans forward slightly for the first time since the break. So let me understand this, he says calmly. Y'all think I came here because I'm mad television doesn't control narratives anymore? The host responds immediately. I think some celebrities enjoy positioning themselves against the media because it makes them look rebellious. Ice Cube smiles faintly. See, that right there is why people stop trusting these conversations. Audience applause erupts immediately. The host shakes her head. No, that's avoiding the point. No, Ice Cube replies. That's the point. The crowd gets louder. He continues. Anytime somebody criticizes systems now, people immediately psychoanalyze them instead of listening. One audience member shouts, exactly. The moderator tries to calm the room. Okay, but another host cuts in. Because motives matter. Ice Cube turns toward her. Everybody's motives matter. Networks got motives too. Audience applause crashes through the studio again. The host responds sharply. And what exactly are our motives? Ratings. The audience explodes. Even some people in the crowd stand up clapping and laughing. The moderator covers her face for a second, laughing nervously. Oh my goodness. One host immediately fires back. You think this show is only about ratings? Ice Cube shrugs calmly. It's television. The audience laughs loudly again. The host keeps pushing. That's incredibly dismissive. No, Ice Cube says. It's honest. Another host leans forward. But honesty without responsibility becomes reckless. Ice Cube nods slowly. True. The audience quiets again because they expect another argument. But instead he continues calmly. Which is why I try to think carefully before I speak. One host says sarcastically, on social media too? Ice Cube laughs softly. Especially there. Audience laughter spreads again. The moderator sees a brief opening to cool things down. You know, I think what people are reacting to is the bluntness. Ice Cube nods. Maybe. One host interrupts immediately. No, people are reacting because there's this larger cultural trend of distrusting expertise. Ice Cube looks directly at her. Experts should still be questioned. Not by people who don't understand issues deeply. That line changes the energy instantly. Audience murmurs grow louder. Ice Cube stares at her for a second. So regular people shouldn't ask questions? That's not what I said. It's what it sounded like. Applause erupts across the room. The host tries to respond, but the audience noise overwhelms her for several seconds. The moderator raises her voice. Folks, Ice Cube stays calm while the crowd settles. Then he speaks slowly. This is exactly the disconnect people feel. Silence. They feel talked down to. Audience applause builds again. One host shakes her head. I completely reject that. Ice Cube points lightly toward the audience. You can reject it. Doesn't mean people don't feel it. The crowd erupts louder than before. The moderator looks toward the audience and then back at the panel. Clearly emotions are strong today. One host mutters quietly, clearly. Ice Cube continues. Look, I grew up watching people struggle while powerful folks on TV acted like they understood everything. That frustration didn't start online. The audience claps again. Another host jumps in carefully. But don't you think distrust can also be manipulated politically? Of course. Then shouldn't public figures be careful feeding into it? Ice Cube nods. Absolutely. But asking questions ain't the same as destroying trust. The moderator says, so where's the line? Ice Cube pauses. The line is honesty. One host immediately interrupts. Everybody claims honesty. Because honesty isn't comfortable, Ice Cube replies. Audience applause fills the room again. The host sighs. See, this is what frustrates me. Every answer sounds morally superior. Ice Cube smiles slightly. Maybe because y'all keep framing disagreement like a character flaw. Audience reaction gets louder again. The moderator quickly cuts in. Let me ask something different. Everybody turns toward her. She looks at Ice Cube carefully. Do you think celebrities have become political because audiences expect it now? Ice Cube thinks for a second. Partly. But I also think people expect public figures to pretend they don't see problems. One host says, or maybe people just want entertainers to entertain. Ice Cube nods. That's fair too. The audience quiets again. But the second entertainers speak honestly, he continues. People say stay in your lane. Another host responds immediately. Because influence comes with responsibility. Ice Cube smiles. Funny how that responsibility only shows up when somebody says something uncomfortable. The audience explodes again. One host throws her hands up. No, that's not true. Ice Cube stays composed. Really? Plenty of celebrities say shallow nonsense every day and nobody panics. Audience laughter and applause spread through the studio. The moderator can't help laughing a little too. One host points at Ice Cube jokingly. You came prepared today. Ice Cube grins. Nah, I just came ready to answer. Audience applause. Then the same host from earlier leans forward again. But I still think there's a contradiction here. Ice Cube turns toward her. Go ahead. You criticize media constantly, while using media platforms to amplify yourself. Audience murmurs. Ice Cube nods slowly. That's not a contradiction. How isn't it? Because criticizing something doesn't mean abandoning it. The audience applauds loudly. He continues. If your family has problems, you address them. You don't pretend everything's perfect. One audience member yells, talk to M. The hosts exchange glances. Another host tries a softer approach. Do you think people are too sensitive now? Ice Cube laughs quietly. Everybody says that until something bothers them personally. Audience laughter. That's human nature. The moderator nods. True. One host says, but outrage culture is real. Ice Cube agrees immediately. Definitely. The audience quiets again. People get rewarded for being offended now, he says. Online especially. One host points at him. Exactly. So then why contribute to it? Ice Cube looks confused. By speaking? No, by escalating distrust. Ice Cube sighs softly for the first time. You keep returning to distrust like people randomly woke up one day angry. Audience applause begins again. He continues speaking over it. People lost jobs. Lost faith in institutions. Watched scandals happen for decades. Watched powerful people avoid consequences. The crowd grows louder. And somehow celebrities asking questions are supposedly the main problem? Huge applause breaks out across the studio. The moderator looks overwhelmed now because the audience reaction is becoming impossible to ignore. One host responds sharply. Nobody said celebrities are the main problem. But y'all keep acting like questioning systems is dangerous. Because words influence people. Ice Cube nods. Exactly. Which is why conversations should be honest instead of scripted. Audience cheers loudly. One host laughs sarcastically. You think this is scripted? Ice Cube smiles. Not anymore. The audience explodes with laughter and applause. Even the moderator laughs harder than before. Okay, that was funny, she admits. But one host clearly isn't amused. You know what concerns me? She says seriously. Ice Cube looks over. What? That audience's cheer confidence more than facts now. The room gets quieter. Ice Cube nods thoughtfully. That's a fair concern. The audience seems surprised again by his agreement. But facts become dangerous too, he continues, when only certain people are allowed to define them publicly. The audience erupts again. The host immediately shakes her head. See, now that sounds like populism. Ice Cube responds instantly. Or maybe it sounds like frustration. The moderator notices several audience members clapping before he even finishes speaking. One host suddenly says, "Do you realize people online are probably turning this into a political war already?" Ice Cube shrugs. Everything becomes political now. That's because words have consequences. Ice Cube leans forward again slightly. So does silence. The audience absolutely erupts. Several people stand up clapping loudly while the panel briefly goes quiet. The moderator looks toward the crowd in disbelief. Wow! One host shakes her head slowly, while another looks down at her notes. Then the same host who started the confrontation earlier speaks again, but quieter this time. You really believe mainstream media has lost touch with ordinary people? Ice Cube pauses before answering. I think a lot of powerful spaces have. Silence fills the studio again. Politics, Hollywood, media, corporate America. A lot of regular people feel invisible unless election season starts. The audience claps hard again. One host says carefully, but television can't solve every social problem. I know, Ice Cube replies. But maybe stop pretending viewers are stupid. That line hits the studio like a shockwave. The audience explodes louder than at any previous moment. Several hosts immediately begin talking over each other again, while the moderator desperately tries to regain control. And just before the chaos fully takes over, one host blurts out something that stuns even the audience. So what exactly are you accusing us of? The entire table goes silent after the question lands. So what exactly are you accusing us of? You can hear audience members murmuring before anyone even responds. Some people lean forward in their seats while others glance between the panel and Ice Cube, waiting to see whether the conversation is about to completely explode. The moderator looks tense. All right, let's just everybody breathe for a second. But Ice Cube answers calmly before she can redirect. I'm not accusing you of anything personally. One host immediately jumps in. Then what are you saying? Ice Cube keeps his voice measured. I'm saying there's a growing disconnect between powerful platforms and regular people. The audience applauds again. The host shakes her head. That's still incredibly vague. Ice Cube nods. Because the problem is bigger than one show. Another host folds her arms. Convenient answer. The audience reacts with mixed boos and applause. The moderator quickly raises her hands. Okay, let's not turn this into everybody attacking everybody. One host responds sharply, but he's making broad accusations against media. Ice Cube turns toward her. No, I'm describing why people are frustrated. The audience cheers again. The host replies immediately. And I think you're oversimplifying complicated issues. Ice Cube shrugs lightly. Television oversimplifies complicated issues every day. The audience absolutely erupts. The moderator laughs nervously. Oh boy. One host looks frustrated now. See, every answer gets applause because anti-media sentiment is trendy. Ice Cube responds calmly. Or maybe people just relate to what I'm saying. Audience applause grows even louder. Another host finally speaks in a softer tone. Can I ask something honestly? Ice Cube nods. Sure. Do you believe conversations like this can still happen productively on television? The audience quiets. Ice Cube pauses for a second before answering. Yes, but only if people stop treating disagreement like disrespect. The crowd claps loudly again. One host sighs. I think respect also means acknowledging expertise. Ice Cube nods immediately. Absolutely. The audience becomes quieter again because his tone changes. But expertise should never become arrogance. A loud wave of applause spreads through the studio. The moderator looks toward the audience and shakes her head smiling. They are with you today. Ice Cube laughs softly. Looks like it. One host mutters jokingly. Unfortunately for us. Audience laughter fills the room again, easing the tension slightly. The moderator tries one last time to steer the discussion somewhere calmer. Let's zoom out for a second, she says. Because clearly this conversation is touching something deeper than entertainment. Ice Cube nods. One host says carefully, I think people everywhere are exhausted. Politically, socially, emotionally. Another host agrees quietly. That part is true. Ice Cube responds calmly. Exactly. And exhausted people stop trusting polished conversations. The audience applauds again. The moderator asks, so what's the solution then? Ice Cube leans back. More honesty. Less performance. One host laughs lightly. On television? Ice Cube grins. I know. Crazy idea. The audience bursts into laughter and applause again. Even two of the hosts laugh this time. But the same host from earlier still looks unconvinced. I still worry, she says seriously, that conversations like this encourage people to distrust every institution. Ice Cube shakes his head slowly. No, Blind trust and blind distrust are both dangerous. The audience quiets again. What people want is transparency, he continues. People can handle bad news. What they hate is feeling manipulated. That line gets another strong audience reaction. The moderator nods slowly. I think a lot of viewers would agree with that. One host responds carefully. But manipulation exists online too. Social media influencers manipulate audiences constantly. Ice Cube points toward her. Absolutely. The audience murmurs again. Everybody's fighting for attention now, he says. That's why people have to think critically about everybody. Politicians, celebrities, media, influencers, all of us. One host smiles slightly. That may be the first thing everybody at this table agrees on. Audience laughter. The moderator claps lightly. Progress. But then one audience member suddenly shouts, Ice Cube for president. The studio explodes into laughter. Ice Cube immediately raises both hands. Nah, don't put that on me. Even the hosts laugh hard at that. One host jokes, too late. Social media already clipped it. The audience laughs again. The moderator smiles. Speaking of social media, this conversation is probably blowing up online right now. One host sighs dramatically. Oh, it definitely is. Ice Cube chuckles. By the time I leave here, headline's gonna say I declared war on daytime TV. Audience laughter erupts again. One host jokes, you kinda did. Ice Cube points at her smiling. See, that's the headline right there. The moderator finally relaxes a little as the tension shifts into humor. But then she asks one final serious question. When people watch this interview tonight, what do you hope they take away from it? The audience becomes completely quiet. Ice Cube thinks for a moment. I hope people realize disagreement doesn't have to mean hatred. Silence. I think people have forgotten how to talk to each other without instantly labeling each other. The audience applauds softly. He continues. You can challenge institutions without being anti-country. You can criticize media without hating journalists. You can disagree politically without treating people like enemies. The applause grows louder. And honestly, he says, looking around the table, conversations like this are healthier than fake politeness. The audience erupts into one final massive round of applause. Even a couple of hosts clap lightly. The moderator smiles. That's actually a strong note to end on. One host nods reluctantly. I'll admit, this was definitely real. Audience laughter. Another host says jokingly, my blood pressure disagrees. More laughter. The moderator turns toward the camera. Whether you agreed with everything said today or not, I think one thing's clear. People are hungry for honest conversations. The audience applauds again. She turns back toward Ice Cube. Thank you for coming. Ice Cube nods politely. Appreciate y'all having me. One host smiles. Even after all this? Ice Cube laughs. Especially after all this. The audience cheers loudly as the music begins playing. The moderator smiles toward the camera again. We'll be right back. The cameras fade out while the audience continues clapping, but the tension at the table still lingers. One host leans back in her chair, shaking her head, while another laughs with a producer walking over off-camera. Ice Cube stands up calmly, shaking hands with a couple of staff members while audience members near the front row continue applauding and trying to get his attention. Within minutes of the episode ending, clips from the exchange begin spreading across social media. Short videos titled Ice Cube Shuts Down the View and Ice Cube Destroys Daytime Panel start trending across multiple platforms. Some viewers praise him for staying calm under pressure, while others criticize the conversation for fueling distrust toward mainstream institutions. Online reactions become deeply divided. Some people post that Ice Cube said what ordinary viewers have felt for years about media and public discourse. Others argue the panel was right to challenge him aggressively and prevent misinformation from spreading unchecked. Several media commentators begin debating whether the interview exposed a larger disconnect between television personalities and audiences. By evening, hashtags connected to the interview are trending nationally. Political commentators on both sides start reposting clips, each claiming the conversation proved their own arguments about media, celebrity influence, and public frustration. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, reports begin circulating that producers were shocked by how intense the interview became live on air. According to backstage chatter, the segment ran longer than planned because producers realized audience engagement was skyrocketing in real time. Some viewers praised the hosts for pushing back hard. Others accuse the panel of talking down to Ice Cube and interrupting too much throughout the conversation. Late-night shows begin joking about the interview. Reaction channels start uploading breakdown videos analyzing every interruption, every audience reaction, and every tense moment from the discussion. By the next morning, millions of people have watched clips from the exchange online. And despite all the controversy, one thing becomes impossible to deny. People could not stop talking about it. Make sure to share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to Talk Show Fallout for more real talk show stories.